Do world events make you a little nervous? Are you looking for a fresh perspective on current topics and trends? Look no further. This is Let's Talk Portsmouth. We bring you timely and thought-provoking subject matter experts, news, and information. We engage with city, community, and business newsmakers, getting to the heart of issues that matter most. Visit us at portsmouthva.gov. Now, here's your host, Sharlette Hunter.
Welcome to Let's Talk Portsmouth. Thanks for joining us. Sharon Hoggart here again from the Portsmouth Marketing and Communications Department. Interested in the city of Portsmouth? Take a short visit via the marvel of technology. Check out portsvacation.com or visit our calendar of special events at portsvaevents.com. There's always something hot happening in Portsmouth. On today's podcast, we begin to wrap up our discussion with social workers, administrators, and other professionals in the Portsmouth Department of Social Services. If there's one thing we've learned in this series, a message that's been reiterated over and over again, is that these women and men work tirelessly to protect and serve some of the most vulnerable people in our city. So joining us on Let's Talk Portsmouth is Ms. Sharlette Hunter, Family Services Supervisor in the Adult Protective Services Unit of the Portsmouth Department of Social Services. Ms. Hunter, welcome to Let's Talk Portsmouth.
Thank you.
And this space is used as our icebreaker portion, where we give you a chance to talk a little bit about yourself, tell our listeners where you were educated, how long you've been with the Portsmouth DSS, and whatever else you'd like to share. And we'll ask you now on the air whether or not you mind us if we address you by your first name during the interview.
That is fine.
All right. Well, tell us about yourself.
Again, my name is Sharlette Hunter, and I completed my education years ago at Elizabeth City State University with a bachelor's in social work. I am current here at Portsmouth Department of Social Services, the supervisor of Adult Protective Services. Throughout my 17 years here, I have been in various departments, Child Protective Services, etc., and I've been in Adult Protective Services for the last 7 years. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm currently supervising here now at Portsmouth Department of Social Services.
Okay, and before we get into our interview, I wanted to give our audience a little bit of background about Adult Protective Services. Hard to believe, but adult abuse, exploitation, neglect, and abuse is a growing problem in our country. According to the Virginia DSS site, Adult Protective Services receives and investigates reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of individuals 60 years of age or older. Adults aged 18 years and older with diminished capacity are also included in the cases investigated by APS. When protective services are needed and agreed upon, APS workers on the local level may arrange for a wide variety of health, housing, social, and legal services to stop the mistreatment. And to demonstrate what a growing problem elder abuse and neglect are, did you all know that Stan Lee, yes, the famous Stan Lee, Marvel comic book creator, writer, and producer, his caregiver was indicted for elder maltreatment and exploitation. Lee died in 2018, and he was 95 years old. So we'll talk later about how you can help prevent elder abuse. Okay, Ms. Sharlette, from the local angle, give our audience an overview of Adult Protective Services Division at DSS.
Okay, I'll start with Adult Protective Services Unit establishes and strengthens appropriate family and social support systems in order to protect adults at risk of abuse, neglect, and or financial exploitation. And we try to prevent it from occurring or reoccurring, I would say. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we accept reports, investigate, document, and we also involve other agencies sometimes in our investigations.
Okay. Explain to our audience what physical abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation of an adult means in layman terms, and what kind of criteria do you use to determine each offense?
Okay. Once we determine that it is a valid adult protective services case, which is essential in the investigation process, it has to be determined that it is a valid case. And what that means is that it must meet the criteria of certain circumstances that you mentioned earlier, which are the adult must be 60 years of age or older, or 18 to 59 with a disability and or incapacitated. Of course, the adult must be a living adult and identifiable, and we must be able to locate that adult. And the circumstances must allege abuse and neglect or financial exploitation. Abuse is when can be several different things. It could be physical abuse, mental abuse, or financial abuse. Sometimes we get calls from agencies, for example, the hospital setting, and we get reports of bruises or marks on an adult. And those cases are investigated because they came from the mandated reporter. We also get cases from elderly applicants calling in the abuse themselves, that maybe a family member has abused or neglected them. So we get our reports in several different manners, and those are two that I mentioned of the ways that we do get the reports in.
You brought up something I found that was kind of interesting, so I'm going to stray off topic here a little bit. Not off topic, but off the script here. You said that the complaints have to be against a living adult, and you must be able to locate them. You often get reports with people, fictitious reports, and you can't find the person, or how does that work?
Sometimes we do get malicious reports. Maybe it's a family that's quarreling over, say, money, or one sibling might want the parent to live with him versus living with the other sibling. And so that's where the validity part comes in, and we have to make sure it is a valid case to investigate.
Okay. So once y'all determine a case of abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation has been determined, you know what's happening. What are the next steps in the process to protect the individual?
The next steps are assigning the case to one of my team members, and that team member at that time has 7 days to get the initial visit done face to face. We also contact them within 24 hours if we can via phone to try to set up the appointment. There are times, depending on the information that is in the report, where we go out right away. So it's determined by what information we receive in the report. Once we determine that the case is valid, I assign it to one of my team members, and that family services specialist at that time makes the decision on when and how he or she is gonna go out to investigate the case. We go out to the person's home. We may go out to a facility. We may go out to a group home, wherever that client is living at. That's where we go out to start the investigation.
Do you guys also investigate alleged abuses in nursing homes? Or is that a different?
Yes, we do.
You do?
But we go out, and we also involve other agencies to assist. We report it to another agency, which is also involved in the investigation. But we can go out and gather information, yes.
Okay. All right. So your team uses something called a UAI tool to assess an individual's social and functional abilities. Explain to the audience what the UAI is, and is it the only tool you use to gather information? And for the audience, it's the UAI is the Virginia Uniform Assessment Instrument. And tell us a little bit about that and how that process works.
Okay. That instrument is used. I wanted to let you know we also have adult services unit along with adult protective services unit. And the adult services unit allows the adult to remain in the least restrictive setting and function as independently as possible by establishing or strengthening appropriate family and or social support. So with that being said, sometimes we get requests or phone calls stating, I am a fall risk and I need someone to come out and assist me during the day with certain things. The universal assessment instrument is a tool that's used to assess that client to determine if that client is eligible for that resource, which is a screening that will allow them to be eligible for either the PACE program, which is a program which they can go out to from 9 to 5 and stay there during the day. Doctors are at that facility. They have activities going on, that type thing. The second thing that they will be eligible for using this same tool is in-home services. In-home services are services that a company will send someone out to assist that person in the home during the day for a certain amount of determined hours based on the need. That worker might come out and assist the client with bathing, dressing, etc. And the other thing that this tool can determine eligibility for is nursing home placement. If that client has an ongoing medical need that needs to be addressed on a daily basis, and that client meets the criteria for that service, this tool will help allow that person to be placed in a nursing facility. So those are the three things that the universal assessment instrument, along with Medicaid, because it is a Medicaid-funded program, meaning that the person would have to have Medicaid to get that service. So here at Social Services, we also, the APS worker, will link them with the Medicaid department and help them if they do not have Medicaid, apply for Medicaid. So that's what the universal assessment instrument is used for here at the agency. And I must also say that when going out to screen with that instrument, a nurse from the health department goes along with the social worker so that she can assess using the same tool, the medical piece, while the social worker is assessing the social piece. So it's a team process.
How tricky is it to get accurate and truthful answers from an adult that may be abused and or neglected? So I'm asking you, how accurate is the UAI tool?
The UAI tool is used for assessing for those services. Now, in a regular investigation, sometimes a family member might be the alleged abuser. And I'll just give an example. Maybe a granddaughter might be the alleged abuser. You have this grandmother that loves this granddaughter and is not going to get her granddaughter in any trouble. So she might deny the allegations. So that's when the interviewing skill and the probing skills and all of that and the observation skills come in from the family services specialist. And we might have to interview separately from the alleged abuser. So we use tactics to try to gather the information. But if that person has capacity and says that, no, it did not happen, and we don't have any proof, then we just try to offer services still, and we continue to check on the adult, but that case may be closed. But if we gather the facts and determine that the abuse is going on, we can go forward and try to put services in place to prevent it from happening again, get that person the medical attention that's needed, and go forward.
Okay. And I think you may have already answered this next question. You talked about some of the services that your agency can help with when an adult needs protection. Do you want to elaborate anymore? I think you went over the social, health, physical, financial, that kind of thing. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, yes, whenever there is a financial exploitation case, meaning that their services are being abused, whether it's their bank accounts, we get quite a few calls or reports from banks where they suspect that abuse is happening. We always forward and contact the police department to assist us in that investigation. All financial exploitation cases has to be reported to the police department.
Okay. Sharlette, does John Q. Public have a role in helping to prevent adult abuse and neglect? And if the public has a role, what is it?
The role is to assist by calling our 1-800 number if you suspect abuse or neglect. It's always essential that you do that, because that person that you're reporting on may actually need that help and may not be able to report it themselves. So it's always good to leave the investigation up to family services specialists here at Portsmouth Department of Social Services. Your job is just to report it. And if we get the report in, we'll do the rest.
And what's that 1-800 number?
The 1-800 number is actually 1-888-832-3858.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. Are there mandatory reporting agencies or professions like it is for child abuse?
Yes. Anyone can report suspected adult abuse. But if you are identified in the Code of Virginia as a mandated reporter, you have received training in recognizing and reporting abuse. So yes, you are considered then a mandated reporter. That's why we get so many calls in from, say, hospitals. On the elderly, if they come in and have a fractured hip or a broken shoulder bone, that they are able to tell, did it happen from the fall, or do they think it happened from a fall, or did it happen from an inflicted injury? So we get quite a few reports from those settings. Okay.
So, all right, walk us through the steps of what happens after an APS report is filed and y'all have found out that it's a legitimate case. Walk us through the steps of what you would do to help protect that individual.
What is done at that time is it's determined that it is a valid case. It is assigned to a family services specialist who would then go out to the home. A lot of times it might take more than one visit to contact that client. The client may be gone out for the day or maybe not able to answer the door. In those circumstances, if that family service specialist can hear that client in the home, not able to answer the door, that's when we involve the police station, fire department, whoever can enter that home for us. And then we have had those type cases where the elderly person cannot get to the door. So we have someone come out and get in the home, call the paramedics, and they come and transport that client to the hospital or to whatever facility that's needed at that time. So then that's when the investigation starts. After we stabilize the case somewhat and make sure that that client is in a safe environment, the investigation continues. And the decision is determined by a staffing on what we need to do going forward with the case. And it all depends on the case itself.
Okay. All righty then. Sharlette, we're going to take a break. And for all you listeners out there, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this message.
My Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
But early detection allowed us to take control of the situation together.
Talk to your family about seeing a doctor. Go to alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
All right, we're in our final segment of Let's Talk Portsmouth, and we got Miss Sharlette Hunter Family Services Supervisor in the Adult Protective Services Unit with the Portsmouth Department of Social Services. APS also investigates abuse and neglect cases for incapacitated adults. Explain these types of cases and the processes for securing help.
That capacity piece is a very important piece. In determining the validity of the report, incapacity is an APS worker's judgment. However, say if the case goes to court, which sometimes it may happen, we have to have a document from a health official saying that that person lacks capacity.
All right. So, how do the members of the public report a suspected case of adult abuse, neglect, or exploitation?
They report it by calling that 1-888 number I gave you, and that goes to the APS hotline. That report is taken, and it is sent to Portsmouth Department Social Services through our documentation system. We will get a notice that we have a new report. The report is open, is read, determined whether it's valid or not, and assigned. A person can also call right into the Social Services Department and make a report during the hours 8 to 5.
Where could the public get more information on Adult Protective Services, the agency, and learn more about the problem of adult abuse and neglect?
They can get more information by contacting the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, and that's through the Commonwealth of Virginia. Their number is 1-800-552-5019.
All right, give that number to us again.
Again, that number is 1-800-552-5019.
To report suspected adult abuse, neglect, or exploitation, call your local Department of Social Services or the 24-hour toll-free APS hotline. That number is 1-888-832-3858. We're going to take one final break, and then we'll wrap up this episode of Let's Talk Portsmouth. Stay with us.
To some, a baby's babbling doesn't mean much, but it does. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Learn more at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Sharlette Hunter from the Portsmouth Department of Social Services, Adult Protective Services, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Thank you for your patience and your time. You shared some great information.
Thank you for having us.
We're glad to do that. And here's your opportunity. If we've missed anything that you want to share that I did not ask, this is your opportunity to wrap this up. What do you got?
Please call us if you suspect and leave the investigation piece up to the family services specialist here. And please reach out and try to assist the elderly as much as possible, because there are a lot of elderly people that need assistance. So don't forget them. Thank you.
Okay. Again, to report suspected adult abuse, neglect, or exploitation, call your local Department of Social Services or the 24-hour toll-free APS hotline, 1-888-832-3858. That's a wrap for this issue of Let's Talk Portsmouth. Check our podcast out on Amazon Music Audible or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Here's your thought for today. But man's reach should exceed his grasp. Or what's a heaven for? Poet Robert Browning. Hug your elderly family members and let them know that they are loved. Engage them in discussion and activities so they will continue to feel a part of the family. Make sure they know you love them. Take care. We're out of here.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Portsmouth. Find our podcasts on the Podbean app, Spotify, Amazon Music/Audible, iHeartRadio, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Until next time, be good to yourself and each other.